The uncomfortable mystery. When economies collapse, we're told it's a tragedy. Jobs disappear. Savings evaporate. Governments panic. Ordinary people are told to tighten their belts and brace for pain. But here's the unsettling question no one asks out loud. Why do the same institutions always survive and often emerge richer? Recessions are described as failures. Crashes are framed as accidents. Yet somehow, every major collapse seems to follow a familiar script, and certain players appear ready before the damage even begins. Tonight we're uncovering the hidden system that doesn't fear economic collapse, because it profits from it. Setting the stage, collapse as opportunity. Most people believe economic collapses are unpredictable disasters, black swan events, freak accidents, something no one could have seen coming. But history tells a different story. Financial crises aren't rare. They are recurring. From the Panic of 1873, to the Great Depression, to the 1970s stagflation crisis, to the 2008 financial meltdown, to the pandemic-era shockwaves, the pattern repeats with alarming precision. Boom. Overconfidence. Leverage. Collapse. And yet, each time, the same financial architecture remains intact. That raises an uncomfortable possibility. What if collapse isn't a failure of the system, but a feature of it? Origins, when crisis became a strategy. To understand who profits from collapse, we need to go back to the foundations of modern finance. In early capitalism, failure was personal. If a business collapsed, owners lost everything. But as financial markets evolved, risk began to shift. Limited liability corporations separated owners from consequences. Banks learned how to socialize losses and privatize gains. Governments became backstops of last resort. By the early 20th century, a new reality emerged. Large financial institutions were no longer allowed to fail. This changed incentives completely. If profits were private, but losses were public, then risk-taking became rational. Collapse no longer meant destruction. It meant transfer. The rise, financialization, and control. After World War II, the global economy was rebuilt around financial markets. Productive economies slowly gave way to financialized economies, where debt grew faster than wages. Asset prices mattered more than production. Speculation outpaced real investment. Banks no longer just supported the economy. They became the economy. New instruments emerged: derivatives, credit default swaps, leveraged debt products. These weren't designed to create stability. They were designed to extract value, especially during volatility. In simple terms, the more unstable the system became, the more profitable it was for those positioned correctly. Collapse was no longer something to avoid. It was something to trade. The breaking point, when the system eats itself. Every financial system reaches a point where leverage exceeds reality. By 2008, global finance had reached that point. Banks were betting on housing prices rising forever. Debt was layered on top of debt. Risk was hidden, repackaged, and sold as safety. When the housing market cracked, the illusion collapsed. Trillions vanished overnight. But here's what shocked the world. The banks that caused the crisis were rescued. The public absorbed the losses. And within years, those same institutions were reporting record profits. Why? Because collapse triggered emergency liquidity injections, zero-interest lending, asset fire sales. Those with access to capital bought everything cheap. Collapse didn't destroy wealth, it concentrated it. Fallout. who really pays? For ordinary people, collapse means unemployment, foreclosures, inflation. Reduced public services. For governments, it means exploding deficits, emergency borrowing, long-term dependency. But for large financial actors, collapse means cheap assets, guaranteed bailouts, increased political leverage. Crises create desperation. Desperation creates compliance. Entire countries have been forced to privatize infrastructure, cut pensions, and sell national assets, often to the very institutions that financed their debt. Collapse becomes a reset button. After every collapse, reforms are promised. New regulations, oversight committees, stress tests, safeguards. But the core structure remains untouched. Growth fueled by debt. Markets that demand constant expansion. Financial institutions deemed too big to fail. Reforms focus on symptoms, not incentives. As long as profits are private and losses are public, collapse will always be profitable. Modern parallels, the pattern continues. Today, global debt exceeds $300 trillion. Central banks have normalized emergency policies. Markets depend on constant intervention. Asset prices are detached from wages and productivity. Crises are no longer rare events. They are scheduled disruptions. Each one transfers more wealth upward. The system doesn't need stability. It needs volatility. Because volatility creates opportunity for those positioned inside the machinery. Conclusion. 3 takeaways. Takeaway number 1. Economic collapses are not random failures. They are predictable outcomes of incentive structures. Takeaway number 2. The system is designed to protect institutions, not societies. Takeaway number 3. As long as collapse is profitable, it will continue. So the real danger isn't the next crisis. It's the normalization of collapse as a business model. If you want to understand the forces shaping your future, the systems operating behind headlines, subscribe to this channel. Because the more visible the system becomes, the harder it is to pretend it's accidental. And once you see who profits from collapse, you'll never look at crises the same way again.